Okay, so this is my update on the Still Small app. Let me just turn up the volume here so we can hear things. Obviously, I mentioned last time I've got hand-based, gesture-based locomotion. We have our music. This was initially a touch test just to make sure I could create something that could be interacted with by the user with any particular part of their body that I have created a collider for. Um, and it works. The audio is a bit off, but whatever, I can fix that later. But it was more the proof of concept. The second thing I wanted to do was try to do like triggers for specific sequences. That's actually why we see this little water ball following me here. This I haven't figured out how to get going yet. There's actually 8 of them in total, and the idea is that you would touch one, it would disable and move on to the next one, and so there'd be like a sequence you'd follow with your hands. And I don't understand why, because these are the same objects essentially. So I know if I were to move this here, like it would still trigger. There's just no audio on this. But the problem is that when I interact with this, it's definitely within the collider. Unity is not, or the script that I made is not enabling the next object in the sequence, which is strange because I still have other things like this gesture-based sequence. What was it? It was this, and it creates an object right over here, and that one's just a light that turns on when you touch it and the sound of a bell. So I have a gesture-based sequence thing that I can do with the gestures that would cause something to happen, and I was trying to do a touch-based sequence. For whatever reason, the touch-based sequence is just not working. However, what I also created, you see back there, obviously, QR code. It is a single QR code, but I made it at different sizes for different portions of it to create a force perspective. Now, I hid the object, but right here in this area, there is a hidden object which is tracking to the head collider. Basically, I was testing to see if the Quest 3 was capable of reading a QR code. Everything I read said yes, it could read a QR code, but the scripts that I found, everything about it said, okay, well, just once it sees this QR code, all you have to do is write this script and tell it where to go. And that's not reading, right? A phone can look at it and it shows you the link without having to be programmed in what the QR code is supposed to go to. It should do it automatically. So I haven't figured out if it's possible yet, but I have figured out how to force it in a different way. So I'll show you that in a moment. But yeah, there is a invisible object here, which I manually placed in a position where you would either with the left eye or the right eye be able to identify, be able to see the force perspective QR code. And if you look at it for 5 seconds, which is about how long it would take you to try and line it up, basically it would just trigger the URL to open up. So I will show you that. But first, I also want to show you this. This is still the coolest thing I've got here. So we have my gestures over here. I've got 22 gestures mapped out, including multi-hand gestures, which can be identified separately based on the hands and based on the system I created, which identifies where your hands are in relation to your fingers, right? So I've got things like this, right? So there's a ton of ways that you can just take your hand movements based on the colliders that are there, and you can just map those gestures to anything. That's how I did the double hand gestures for forward and backwards, right? Simple enough. But this, the crux of my game, the really cool feature is how to hide things in multiple dimensions. So right now, I'm considering the VR space my third dimension. Yes, it's a weird space, but it is still 3 dimensions, right? So the idea is that if this is 3 dimensions, this right here is 2 dimensions, a keyboard, right? And 1 dimension would just be a line or a plane, which whatever. We don't need any of that. So what would the 4th dimension be? And since even though I can see my hands, right, I feel things outside of this dimension, although it feels like it's within, right? So the idea is that a 4th dimension would essentially be the 3rd dimension, but the the shadow of the third dimension on a higher plane that is not interactable from the third dimension. So that's why I'm using AR. I managed to figure out how to connect the pass through to the quest, and through that, I'm also able to pass through from VR into AR, and that's where I come up with this gesture. So this, while this gesture is active, which is actually really cool to see your hands go from AR to VR. While this gesture is active, you see those spheres back there. Those spheres are only active while pass-through is active. Right now, you can see if I look towards my living room right there, that sphere disappears because that sphere is active in the three-dimensional space. What I need to figure out next is how to move that sphere only into the AR space so that it only appears in that exact spot where it is, but behind the pass through. I need it to be an AR object that is only visible while I'm looking into the window of the fourth dimensional space. That's going to be a little complicated for sure, but I've already started by having this gesture. And of course, I added the cool sound effects because it's supposed to be a word, right? You get into a VR game and you're immersed, and this is the world, and you'll have your sound effects, maybe some music. You got things going on. This is your reality. So I wanted the gesture to snap you out of that. I want it to be creepy, and yes, it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be something you want to do. But I also wanted it to feel like something that's unnatural and something that you're going to actually probably be a little hesitant to do. You don't have to do it, of course, but the idea is you're gonna get the user eventually to want to do it. So again, that's why we have the sound effect. It's actually ordnance sound effects, so bombs exploding from a distance. And the idea is that when you do this gesture, you're ripping a hole in reality. And what would that sound like? What would it feel like? And so the hole opens up. You've got your window into the fourth dimension, and then there's that eerie crackling, like you're just holding things, barely holding the window open. And when it closes, we have that even closer large ordnance that explodes, which is the idea that it's kind of like a wave or a tsunami just smashing back together. And of course, I'll add some effects. Eventually, this is a prototype, just putting everything together. So let's do that again. That's the effect, and I really like how that came out. So let's go ahead and take a look at the force perspective, which will open up. See, it's right about here. So I should be in there. There we go. We have a nice sound effect that comes out. We got our music. Congratulations, you did the thing. It opens up the URL, and the URL itself. And pictures of me in general. So like just fun stuff, and then of course you go to my portfolio. Video games I worked on back at EA, my own projects, which don't include this one because since this is my newest project, but the AI art stuff I've done for Roblox, general VR stuff when I first got into it, doing the MIT X Pro, AR, VR, XR design. This right here actually was the inspiration for the game that I'm creating here, which was made in Godot, and the purpose was to prototype, improve the ability to transition between different gaming mediums from 2D to 3D to AR to VR. I never actually got VR working because it wasn't capability in Godot, so it only went as far as AR. So now it does it apparently, but I'm already working on this in Unity, so I'll have to go back and forth and see if I can, get that going again. This is a word, a story narrative that I created that can be followed through, and some GPTs that I created, some you know HTTP video games that I created as well, and most of this stuff using GPT because I myself am not a programmer, right? So all of this, everything you see here, all of these really cool and innovative concepts and ideas that been able to create, these things were created using GPT as an augmented programmer for me who does not program. What I do know is how to manipulate scripts, and what I do know is how to design and how to test as a quality assurance professional. So that's what I did. I took what I know from the industry of software development lifecycle, and everything I know from gaming, what I love, and the interesting things that I know other people love, and I taught GPT how to create what's in my head. And now I can just tell it, hey, this is what I want you to do. It'll do it, and I can just kind of copy and paste, because I know the order and the structure things need to be in. So that's the update right there. And again, this is the coolest one I got. Boom, my fourth dimensional gesture, and there's more to come. I'm still working. This is the main thing I'm working on right now, so that'll be the next thing I do in the update once I figure out how to get this to trigger and create the rest of the sequence. And once I can do one, of course I can do a million. So from there I'll have different effects that you do by tracing different patterns, and of course these will be disappearing as well as soon as I get them to work. And the idea is you can teach your user, from simplicity to complexity, as they go through the game. But first, I'm just pulling out all the proof of concepts, taking a look at everything I could possibly be doing, in a game, and then I will find a way to turn that into a simple, but very engaging game that takes you not just through the virtual reality portion of things, but also into augmented reality and into the real world itself, to kind of to expand the idea and concept of play, and really change the dynamic and raise the bar, on what games should and could be through VR and XR today. So thanks for taking a look, and I'll see you guys in the next one.